Hello and welcome to History for Weirdos.
We're your hosts, Andrew
and Stephanie.
And each week, we're going to take you on a journey into the strange, obscure, and relentlessly entertaining corners of human history.
Now listen up, friends, because it's about to get weird. Welcome back, weirdos, to another Historical Mysteries episode.
Let's go, baby.
We do have a small confession to make before we get started on this week's episode.
You do the honors.
You sure?
Yeah.
We already recorded this episode earlier in the week, and the file got corrupted, and Andrew was unable to open the file at all. So it's just sitting there, inaccessible, and here we are ready to re-record the same episode.
And you know what? It's so crazy. I don't think this has happened to us in over 100 episodes.
Yeah.
So
it's been a very long time.
Yeah, it threw us for a loop big time.
It's just, I guess, par for the course with using technology. Sometimes it's going to fail you.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating because that was a pretty good recording.
It was a really good recording, guys. We still have the video of it with the terrible audio. So I think at some point in the future, we'll drop it on you guys, but it's never going to be an official episode.
Yeah, this would be like just for the Patreon, probably.
Probably, yeah.
But this means that I have heard this story before, but don't you worry, weirdos. A lot of the questions Andrew is going to ask me throughout the episode, I already forgot the answers to.
I knew that's exactly what you were going to say.
It was a silly recording because we realized towards the end that I hadn't taken my ADHD medication.
That's so true.
So I wasn't very focused.
Guys, it was an absolute banger of an episode because Stephanie was just going wild. I was like, who is this woman? And then I was like, oh, you haven't taken your meds.
Yeah, I just forgot that day.
Yeah.
I was wondering why throughout my sessions, I was a little more silly than normal. That's why. But that aside, I'm really excited for you to share this episode with me again, but with the weirdos for the first time, because this is a really cool mystery.
Yeah, this one is kind of a deep cut. There is a History Channel show that kind of covers this, a bit of it at least, that is currently running, but I'll get to that when I get to that. It is very exciting, and it is a big mystery that I think we may have solved, but ultimately it's up to you guys.
And how did you find out about this?
That's a really good question. I think I've seen clips of the History Channel TV show.
Oh, okay.
And that's how I knew about it.
Yeah. Well, go ahead and introduce this week's mystery.
Okay, guys. We are going to be exploring one of the most enduring and enigmatic treasure hunts of all time that is currently underway and has lasted for almost as long as the United States has been around as a country.
That's a really long treasure hunt. I can't even imagine.
I can't imagine either, because that is a long time. So basically a tiny, seemingly insignificant island has been rumored to be the location of a massive secret treasure with very dubious origins.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Theories range anywhere from pirate or privateers all the way to the ill-fated Knights Templar.
Yes. The Knights Templar is always a good one to throw in there as a theory.
It really is. They're a very strange group of people. So this treasure has been so sought after that people have tried to get to it.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like for a long time.
And so without further ado, let's get into the mystery that is Oak Island. Dun, dun, dun. So Oak Island is a small privately owned island off the coast of Nova Scotia in Mahone Bay, and that's in Canada. It is roughly 1 by 1/2 mile in size, or 1.6 kilometers by 0.8 kilometers.
It's so tiny.
Yeah, it's a small island.
Yeah.
In the early days of settlement, the island was called Smith's Island, after an early settler, Edward Smith, and then later was called Gloucester Island.
Gloucester.
Yeah. The name Oak Island came from the fact that the island was the one and only in the Sound to grow trees, or oak trees specifically.
Oh, that must be pretty.
It does look actually quite pretty, minus all the digging equipment.
And you'll tell us why. There's all the digging equipment.
Exactly. So, what is the Oak Island mystery? The mystery begins with a young man finding an area of land that appeared to be sunken in, as if someone had once dug a pretty large hole and then filled it back up. Why the young mainlander, Daniel McGinnis, ventured to the island in 1795 is still not entirely clear. Some reports claim that he was on a fishing expedition. Others claim that he was simply curious and wanted to explore. While others say that he was actually inspired by some mysterious lights coming from the island that he saw back on the mainland.
Yeah, it's probably aliens.
Definitely aliens.
Signaling him.
Absolutely. So whatever it was that drew Daniel to the island may be unclear, but what he found when he got there would inspire over 200 years of inquiry and excavating.
That's so wild.
Yeah, it's wild, guys. So the Money Pit. Where is it? What is it? So the Money Pit location is on the southeastern corner of the island, a short distance inland from Smith's Cove. So when McGinnis and his two friends, Jack Smith and Anthony Vaughn, first discovered the area in 1795, they began excavating as best as they could. I mean, beneath the dirt, the boys unearthed a layer of flagstone sourced from a nearby river, followed by layers of dirt and clay and platforms of oak logs.
Okay, yeah. So that's when they were like, there's definitely something here.
Exactly.
The platforms.
Yeah, that would be kind of like a weird thing to come across. So the wooden platform / log seemed to be positioned every 10 feet. So you go down 10 feet, there's something there, 20 feet, another layer of it, 30 feet, yet again another.
That's so intentional.
Yeah. So the boys, though, they were only able to dig about 27 feet in 1795, and that was it.
Okay. I imagine they didn't have equipment with them, these first three young men.
Besides shovels.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
That would be really hard and very tiring.
That's really tiring. Yeah. They certainly didn't have like gasoline powered like machines to excavate for them.
Jackhammering it.
Yeah, that too. So in 1803, Smith returned to the site with several others who would come together to form the Oslo Company. They continued digging as before, finding more wooden platforms every 10 feet. On top of the platform at 40 feet, the men found a layer of charcoal on top of the actual wooden platform.
Okay.
The next platform was covered in clay, and then the next in eelgrass and coconut fibers, which are not native to Canada at all.
Eelgrass is a type of grass, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then coconut fibers.
Yeah.
Coconuts.
This sounds very tropical.
It does, right? It's interesting you mentioned that. So at nearly 90 feet, the team found a flagstone cut in a square and with an unknown cipher carved into it. At 100 feet, they hit something solid and they were forced to stop for the night. By this depth, water had begun leaking into the shaft, and by morning, roughly 2/3 of the pit had been flooded with seawater.
They got in 100 feet and then it flooded overnight.
Exactly.
I would go home.
I'd be so pissed because, I mean, now, yeah, you have water pumps. You're good to go.
But they can't.
Not then, not back then.
Like, what are you going to do? Take buckets?
Yeah.
And try to get the water out?
Over 60 feet of water? No way.
No way.
Yeah,
Poor
exactly.
guys. And you said an unknown cipher was found before they hit something hard?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It was like a big stone with an unknown like writing on it.
Okay.
So the flooding of the shaft inspired some to believe that there was some sort of elaborate flood tunnel like system set to prevent anyone from reaching the bottom of the pit and uncovering what lay below.
Money.
Money.
I would love to find a money pit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, just like give me a few million. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. I promise we'll be good stewards of it.
We really would, actually. But anyways, so what is the cipher stone?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a great question.
Is it like what are they called? Like a pirate's map or treasure map?
Well, we don't know.
Great.
That's the short answer. So the inscribed stone is called the cipher stone by those who studied it, and reports at the time said it was roughly 2 to 3 feet long, so quite large, and 12 to 16 inches wide, and appeared to be made of Swedish marble.
That's so specific.
It's very specific, very random. despite there being hundreds of reports from people who had the opportunity to view the stone, so it was indeed real. No rubbings or illustrations from the initial finding have survived, and the current whereabouts are unknown.
This is a theme now for your mysterious episodes, is information being lost.
That's a really good... Wow.
Yeah.
I'd never noticed that, but no, you're right.
Like, how does something that garners so much attention from people, you said hundreds would have seen it?
Hundreds.
It just vanishes. Like, how does that happen?
Not only vanishes, but there aren't like engravings or there aren't any sort of like just depictions of it drawn.
Yeah.
Like nothing.
That's so weird.
I mean, it's just, it's crazy. So like replying then like on these initial reports and eyewitness accounts and recollections, experts at the time attempted to determine like, what does this cipher mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the most accepted translation of the cipher reads, quote, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried, end quote.
2 million pounds of money?
Money. However,
Like British pounds?
That's what I would assume,
Okay.
yes. However, later studies have complicated the transcription or translation, leaving more uncertainty than clarity as to what the stone tablet actually says.
That's great.
Yeah,
So not only do we not have it, we're not clear what it said in the first place.
exactly.
Okay, awesome.
And there are even some people still that believe the markings are not in fact a cipher at all, but instead markings left by the team of workers as they hit stone in their attempts to dig further.
That would be the biggest like joke.
Yeah.
That would be terrible. But I feel like if you're hitting stone, it would look kind of almost like ice cream scoops or strikes, right? Like
Yeah.
lines or curved lines. I can't imagine that looks like a cipher, like someone trying to code a language.
No, that's a really good point. It's really interesting you mentioned the scoops because that reminds me of a previous episode we did with Hatshepsut
That's right. That's right.
and the unfinished obelisk.
Yeah, and it just looked like they had an ice cream scooper to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, the image I had. Or worst case, like just flat lines of the shovel hitting, like pick scars almost.
Yes.
Pick markings. That doesn't look like words or like someone's trying to communicate words.
You're bringing up really good points. And honestly, like I agree with you.
Yeah, but we can't see it now, so we don't know. Mhm.
Yeah, I know. It's not even like, oh, let's like take a look at it.
Yeah.
Like have our producer pick it up. Oh, that's me. Be like, hey, look it up, and then we can talk about it. But no.
Okay. This is frustrating.
It's very frustrating. So let's move on from that. Let's talk about the flood tunnels, right? Because that's weird. That's cool.
That's like Indiana Jones stuff.
It really does feel like that.
Yeah.
But a little bit less high stakes, I suppose.
Money.
Okay, so what are they? Everyone who has attempted to uncover the secret of the money pit has been met with great frustration because of these flood tunnels. Believed to be an elaborate set of tunnels and drainage systems, these tunnels appear to be set to go off when anyone digs past a certain level, so thereby opening the tunnels and allowing water from the nearby cove to flood the pit.
That's really ingenious.
Right?
I can't imagine the engineering knowledge you have to do that.
You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Especially because, again, this was created when there was no like electric tools, there weren't gas-powered machinery, there's nothing.
They don't even have steam power.
No.
Yeah.
So
this is very low tech and yet very advanced.
Exactly. So when attempting to ascertain like where exactly is this water coming from, searchers discovered that off of Smith's Cove, the water rose and fell with the tide, leaving the cove different in some areas than in others. So they began searching the cove for more clues, only to find a system of box drains and flood tunnels leading underneath the shoreline.
So it was like the power of the waves of the tide contributes to the flooding.
I guess you could say it's the moon.
It's the moon.
Yeah, controlling the tides.
Because when you mentioned the flooding the first time, the men that originally found it, it's not like as soon as they went past a certain point, it flooded. It took overnight
Exactly. It wasn't, you're right. And that is a key distinction there. It was not immediate. So it had to have like come in through the tide. And then once the tide recedes, the water's still there. Like it's like stuck there.
Yes. Why is it not going back? Like I can't imagine the
I think it's because
mechanics.
it's sloped.
Oh.
Yeah. So it won't go back up.
Yeah. So it's just filling it.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
I know, right?
Whoever thought of it, very smart.
Very ingenious. Yeah. And for like whatever
purpose. Yeah.
Because we'll get into that later, guys. Okay. So there were 5 box drains leaving the area in a fan-shaped pattern, along with a man-made filter from the same fibers that had been found in the pit. And these 5 box drains met at the highest point in the cove. The system helped prevent the pit and drains from becoming clogged with debris from the ocean, and subsequent surveys revealed that drains followed like a tunnel of 460 feet from the sump in the cove to the 111-foot depth of the money pit at a slight incline of 22.5 degrees.
Yeah, that's very intentional.
And here's the kicker. Well, experts have compared the tunnel system to the system of tunnels found in old Cornish mines. Each of the 5 tunnels are just under 3 feet wide and roughly 4 feet high, filled with rocks to ensure that they did not collapse from the water. That is, until triggered to do so.
So maybe whoever constructed this had some knowledge of the Cornish mines.
Yeah, and I mean, that would make sense. That's in, I think, southwestern England, I think. So, I mean...
You think they could have been settlers from that area coming to Canada?
Very plausible, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
This is interesting.
Or at least someone who had understanding of those mines. Right?
Yes.
So that presumably English, Cornish, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
So when the Oslo company first discovered the flooded money pit, like in the morning, kind of getting back to our narrative, they attempted to dig an adjacent shaft, only to encounter the exact same problem when they dug too far.
Oh, poor guys.
For the next 2 years, they attempted to clear the shafts from water, and they had 0 luck.
2 years of trying?
2 years, and they came up empty-handed.
Oh my goodness, that's determination right there.
Yeah.
Because I don't think... And they don't even know what's down there. Because I was going to say, I don't think a treasure would motivate me to do that for 2 years. They don't even know if there's a treasure. It's the idea of a treasure.
Right. There's
that's
a
motivating
lot of
them.
Stories floating around, but there isn't like, oh, it says one thing that's super persistent, right? No, there's a lot of things that are just kind of thrown out there. It seems to me that a lot of them are kind of, it's just BS that people kind of like monkey flinging their own feces.
And everyone's like, yeah, I'm willing to dedicate the next several years of my life to seeing if that's true or not.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
I know, it is kind of wild. So we're going to jump forward a couple of decades. 1849, a new company, the Truro, Truro.
Okay.
Really hard to say.
Truro. Yeah.
Truro. That company took charge of Oak Island. And this time, rather than attempting to simply dig out the shafts, the men used a horse-drawn auger to dig down and collect samples. And using the auger, it is rumored that the men found a small gold chain of 3 links. It was also during this time that the origin and scope of the flood tunnels were actually discovered.
Okay.
So then, a couple decades later, 1871, along with the Oak Island Association, there was another attempt to excavate the shaft. However, the bottom of the pit collapsed, almost killing 2 of the men.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Also, this progress is really slow.
It's very slow.
Oh my gosh.
So in the final decades of the 19th century, groups searching the area shifted their focus away from the pit itself into an area that came to be known as the cave-in pit. So no more money pit, but now cave-in pit.
Doesn't sound as fun.
No, it sounds less fun. And that was located about 350 feet away from the money pit. The team speculated that this other pit was likely the original ventilation shaft used when building the flood tunnels. Oh. And this pit, like the others, collapsed and filled with seawater, ending the search there.
I would be so infuriated.
Dude, whoever built like the little flood tunnels, they're geniuses.
Yeah.
Like, and they were geniuses.
And very devious, because that is maddening.
Right? What do you guys think, weirdos? I would be so furious.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, so the Oak Island Treasure Company, great name, by the way.
Their merch must be amazing. I'm
Well,
going to look it up after this.
I think they're probably gone by now. But yeah, this is like the late 19th century company.
Well,
So yeah, look it up right now while I keep on
know.
going.
Okay.
So Oak Island Treasure Company, they were around in the last decade of the 19th century. They continued the efforts using a rig drill. Don't ask me what that is.
I was going to ask.
But it's like
it's a type of drill that you rig?
Sure. So they eventually dug to a depth of 170 feet this time before the drill hit something that was impenetrable. When they brought the drill back up, there was a small piece of sheepskin parchment attached to the debris with the letters VI or UI.
Okay.
I think it was UI for user interface.
I think so.
Yeah.
The UI design?
Yeah, exactly. Because that totally makes sense in the late 19th century.
By the way, the Oak Island Treasure Company no longer exists, but on the Oak Island Tours website, they do discuss the history of that company.
Oh, nice.
And I wonder if Oak Island Tours would have the merch.
I know. Maybe we should take a tour.
Oh my God, that would be so fun.
Yeah. So what's the curse of the money pit, by the way?
I don't know. You haven't brought it up until just now.
Okay. Well, let me tell you the curse of the money pit.
Yeah, tell us.
So nobody seems to know exactly who or when this money pit was cursed, but the legend states that 7 men will die before the pit reveals itself. Or its secret, I should say.
Oh.
And at this point in time, 6 men have lost their lives in pursuit of the treasure. And 4 of them happened on the same day.
Oh.
I'm not going to get into it. Just know that people died.
That's so spooky.
Yeah.
And of course, what's a good mystery without a curse? And a treasure hunt?
Exactly. This is like, I think I really like this episode because it really ignites like the little like kid in me.
Yeah.
It's like buried treasure. It's very Indiana Jones-esque.
And Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Like Disneyland. We should just go to Disneyland. I think you're right. Let's do it.
Moving on. Okay. So what treasures are rumored to be buried in the pit? That's what we all want to know.
Yeah, that's what we want to know. Why are people willing to risk their lives?
So there have been countless suggestions over the years, and so what part of it makes this really difficult is like which theories have more claim or more validity than others.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really it's very difficult to ascertain the actual age of this pit. Carbon dating done in 1969 dated the pit to roughly 1575, while later dating done in 1981 indicated a much more recent age of somewhere between 1700 and 1780.
Those are very different.
Yes.
So we're going to go with the later one.
I think that one makes a lot more sense. There's a lot
the
more
technology
activity.
Would be better too.
Exactly. There's more technology. There's just more people now, like in this area of the world, whereas in 1590, not nearly as many.
Yeah.
So, or 1575, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So some people believe the pit is in connection to the Knights Templar. Others believe it was created by the French, specifically the French army, to hide treasures belonging to the French crown during the 7 Years' War. Other theories...
No, I could see that.
Yeah, like there was other theories which seem more credible, tie the pit and surrounding tunnels and artifacts to some like past industry. It could be a tar pit, or salt works, or even a dock. And then 3 years before the initial discovery of the pit in 1795, the South Sea Company operated on the island, extracted tar using large kilns. So that does point to some evidence that maybe it is in connection to that industry.
So it's either like, wow, this is like Knights Templar treasure, French gold, or a tar pit.
Pretty much, yeah. That actually sounds pretty accurate.
Okay, so it's either really cool or really mundane.
Yes.
No in between.
There's no in between here.
All right.
I think I'll give you guys like what I'm thinking later on.
Yeah, tell them at the end.
Yeah, at the end.
So you don't color their perspective.
So one of the more interesting theories, pirates or privateers.
That would be the cool one.
The theory that the money pit was created by pirates to shelter their treasure holds like some logic, right?
Mhm.
The area was heavily frequented by pirates in the 17th and 18th centuries. However, when you think about it, pirates were probably unlikely to stash away currency because they need that cash on hand just to survive. And they also didn't have the technical expertise to construct such precise tunnels and pits.
Unless you were a pirate that used to work in the Cornish mines.
Oh, snap,
Right?
Steph. That's a really good theory.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not in the original recording of this.
No, I just thought of that. Like, what if you were working in the Cornish mines and you were like, this sucks? I'm going to go be a pirate.
Yeah, and just actually make the money.
Yeah.
Or like get the money. And then now you have the expertise of the mines,
Yes.
the mine shaft and mining equipment. Boom.
I do
Money.
think, though, that's a really good point. I know it's called the money pit, but if it were pirates or privateers, if they stashed something in there, I don't think it would be money. It would have to be something else they found because they need money to like party or whatever it is that pirates do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And plus, like, you're a pirate. Like, no one is gonna. I mean, unless it's like the Royal Navy or something. Like, no one's gonna like fight you.
Yeah. Or I guess you could stash stuff there if you know you're gonna frequent it a lot. If you're like, oh, we always pass through here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely possible. So, I mean, so speaking of pirates and a specific pirate, there are some people that believe that after looting Panama and abandoning his crew in 1671, Captain Henry Morgan, and yes, I mean that Captain Morgan, as in the rum, sailed north and stashed away his pillaged prizes before eventually returning to the Caribbean and becoming governor of Jamaica.
That is so crazy.
Like, we live in an insane world, guys. You can
Yeah.
always go for your dreams. Let's just say that.
How messed up, he abandoned his crew?
Yeah, I don't know the backstory behind that, but he did, and
That's interesting.
kind of a piece of shit move.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, it's like kind of.
Well, he did become a governor. He did become a politician.
Yeah, he went from like something kind of cool to something despicable. Because
Exactly.
politician's worse than privateer or pirate.
He'd be an interesting episode in and of itself, it sounds like.
I do think so. And this next character would also be a really good episode, and that is Francis Bacon. So there is a long stated rumor that Bacon once said that he would, quote, be known for who he really is, end quote, long after his death. So the people who like are really big stans of Sir Francis Bacon are called Baconites. Yeah.
Yeah. When Andrew first told me this, I was like, oh my God, do you think people who are big fans of Kevin Bacon also call themselves Baconites?
And I just looked at you and I just continued going on with the story.
But I feel like you would be. Like, you know how like Beyonce has the Beehive?
Oh my God.
Taylor has her Swifties. Maybe Kevin Bacon has his Baconites.
Well, if there are any Baconites here in this, or listening, like any weirdos who are also Baconites, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. So, I'm so sorry. I got really distracted by the name Baconites.
Yeah, you did.
Tell us why they think it's Francis Bacon.
Okay, so these Baconites, they think, nay. They know,
Oh, snap.
or at least firmly believe,
Okay.
that Sir Francis Bacon was actually the true author of the works attributed to William Shakespeare, along with a few other writers of the time, and that he hid the original manuscripts beneath the soil at Oak Island.
That would be so extra.
It's so extra.
And why? I don't know enough about the Shakespeare theory to comment on that, but they're arguing that not only was he one of the biggest literary geniuses of all time, but he also had really in-depth engineering knowledge and created this
And he was a
flooding tunnel
prolific
system.
privateer as well.
Yeah.
On top of all
all
that.
three of those
The
things.
Renaissance man. So this Bacon theory, by the way, it argues that his experience, with codes and ciphers, along with his work preserving things in Mercury, makes him a strong candidate for the treasure's owner.
Remind me, what was the quote that he said?
So he said, quote, he would be known for who he really is, end quote.
When he's dead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he said that during his life, but apparently, like, it surfaced after his death. So
it could also be not
even attributed to him. Like, he might not have even said that.
But that could be in reference to so many things.
There's a lot of things that
could be in reference to having illegitimate children. That could be in reference to his sexual identity. That could be in reference to him being a serial killer. Like, that could be so many things.
I mean, yeah, that is very true.
All right. I'm not buying the Bacon Knights.
I'm not buying it either. So this is my personal favorite theory. This is the Knights Templar and the Holy Grail.
Oh, that the Holy Grail's under there?
It's the Holy Grail.
Okay.
I mean, this is the most far-fetched theory there is.
So of course it's your favorite.
Yeah, of course it's my favorite. So this order, the Knights Templar, in real life, we're just talking about real life. They were, I don't know why I said that. I think it's because that TV show we're watching, Lady Jane Grey, or My Lady Jane Grey.
Lady Jane.
My Lady Jane. There we go.
Oh, yeah. We should have brought that up at the beginning.
Right. And it's complete historical fiction.
Weirdos, you will remember because you listen to every single episode, of course, that we create. I did an episode on Lady Jane Grey. She was the woman who was queen for 9 days. She was manipulated and pawned around by like the powerful and ambitious men in her life, and she ended up literally losing her head for it, even though she never wanted to be queen. So when I heard there was a show about her, I was like, oh my God, Andrew, we have to watch it.
Yeah.
But then tell them what happens.
All of a sudden, there are supernatural elements, people turning into animals, and I look at her, I'm like, I don't think this is historically accurate.
It's not a historically accurate show, but it is funny.
But it's funny. I mean, to be fair, they say at the very beginning that it's completely
that they're basically going to rewrite her story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is entertaining.
It's very entertaining. And also she's Queen of England, just to be clear.
Yeah. Queen of England. Yes, I'm sorry. And so thinking of that is what made you think like, okay, back to the real story or back to real life.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So they were disbanded in 1307, and a lot of former knights, they fled to Scotland, taking with them like a lot of relics and treasures, a lot of just like the Knights Templar gold and treasure.
All the things they found while being militant around the world.
Exactly, their booty.
Their booty.
Their booty. So in Portugal, a lot of knights also found refuge there, and because the Portuguese government at the time just straight up like ignored the Pope. They're just like, no, we're not going to listen to you. And I don't know why, but I think that's so awesome. And so in order, though, to like comply, they changed the name of the Knights Templar to the Military Order of Christ.
That's a really great rebrand. I would never put those two together.
I know.
No, that's so obvious. I'm interested in why the Pope was against them. Wouldn't a
power?
Oh,
they were too powerful. That's all it really was.
They had like too much money, wealth, influence. Yeah. Okay.
And because they had extensive networks throughout Europe and the Middle East, like the Holy Land.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like moving forward a little bit. Like there have been several links between Nova Scotia and Portuguese explorers that have been established.
Oh.
So it makes sense that maybe there's that like a connection there.
Yeah.
You know, over the course of centuries.
That maybe some of those Portuguese explorers were descendants of the Knights Templar.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then they took some of these relics, which like to the New World for safekeeping, which I guess, you know, on the surface makes some sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that train of thought.
So like the next two theories, I'm just going to kind of like go through them quickly. There was one ship that was known as a pay ship. So like, you know, anytime that, you know, people in the New World, like explorers or soldiers, they needed to get paid still. So like ships would come from like the homeland and pay them. And, you know, it could be the ruins or the treasure is really just like people's salaries.
Oh, it's kind of like payroll.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
And that was the Louisburg pay ship. And then also William Phipps and the Concepcion. Like basically in 1685, William Phipps was granted permission from the King of Spain to search for a lost treasure ship, the Concepcion. which had sunk in the Caribbean in 1641. So after 2 years, Phipps returned to Spain with over 68,000 pounds of silver from the Concepcion.
Wow.
He was knighted, and the king sent him back to look for more. However, very little else was found, and rumors suggest that he buried excess treasure in the money pit while he spent some time in the area there around 1690, which is very close to the 1700 to 1770 or 1780 time frame.
Yeah, just beforehand. That's another reference to the Caribbean.
Exactly.
Because of the grass and the coconut.
Exactly. So there is archaeological evidence that there were ships coming there from the Caribbean.
Okay.
Or at least more tropical places. And it can be assumed that that's probably the Caribbean.
So interesting.
So this one's also kind of a wild one. Theories, there's a theory that Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI, they fled Paris with the crown jewels in June 1791. And this was popularized by Franklin Roosevelt, who also hunted for the treasure, by the way, before becoming president.
And he spread these rumors?
Yes. The theory goes that before being captured in Varennes, the king and Marie Antoinette gave the jewels to a lady-in-waiting who was charged with the task of taking them out of the country and to the fortress at Louisbourg.
Oh.
However, as the pit was discovered only 4 years after this, the theory is extremely unlikely.
You think the pit would have had to be sitting there for longer?
I think so.
Okay.
Especially the way that
it was found.
It was found, exactly.
Okay. That's a very interesting one, though.
Yeah, that one's kind of wild. Also, Latin American gold from like the Incans, the Aztecs.
In Nova Scotia?
In Nova Scotia. But I mean, that is a theory, and I do not think that's a very credible theory. So I'm not even going to get into it that much.
Does that theory argue that the Spanish found a bunch of gold and then hid it there?
Yeah, and specifically like one of the within this, like the more popular like sub theory is like specifically from the Incan Empire with Francisco Pizarro. He demanded like a ton of gold, and
yeah, he was a POS.
Yeah, he kind of was, and then like he demanded that they fill a room with gold, and if they couldn't, he'd kill the king. He did anyways.
Yeah, they fill the room and he kills him.
Yeah, and so the rumor is a lot of this gold actually was smuggled out and taken there.
That would be really far.
Yeah, no,
Peru.
There's very little cause to believe that he would have, like, any of this gold would have made it all the way to a remote island in Nova Scotia from South America in the 16th century.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's very credible. There was like a treasure amassed at St. Andrew's Cathedral in Scotland that went missing around 1590. There's a theory that that treasure could be there, but there's not a lot of evidence linking the two. It's just like, oh, it kind of fits the time frame.
Mm-hmm. And they're closer, I guess, geographically.
Exactly.
Someone could have taken it there. St. Andrew.
So this is a really sad theory. So this is the second to last one that I'll go over. But there was this famed English explorer named Martin Frobisher. That's a great last name, Frobisher. So he was tasked by Queen Elizabeth with locating the fabled Northwest Passage and, of course, gold in the mid-16th century. So in 1577, he carried over 200 tons of ore, like gold ore, back to England and was inspired to return and look for more. So his second voyage brought more ships and more men to dig mines and search for gold. And so from this trip, he brought over 1,300 tons of ore home.
Oh my God.
And unfortunately, when the ore was smelted, it was discovered to be pyrite or fool's gold. Completely worthless. And there's a theory. The theory here is that the shaft and the flood tunnels are evidence of these old mines.
So it just would lead to pyrite.
Exactly. And it was just like
we have pyrite. I thought I might have it behind me, but no.
We have it somewhere.
It looks like fake gold.
Yeah. I mean, it's not gold, but it does look very similar.
Oh, would it be so embarrassing to come back to Queen Elizabeth?
Of all
people?
You're like, hey, it better her than her father.
Okay, yeah. Terrible man.
That's Henry VIII, and just in case you guys didn't know.
My arch nemesis.
Yeah, Stephanie hates Henry VIII. Loves the Tudors, hates Henry.
Because I am a good human being with a soul.
How do you feel about Henry VII, though, his father?
His dad? I don't know a ton about him.
I just know he won the War of the Roses. Kind of a big deal, but I surprisingly know very little.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Last theory, guys, and I'm saving the best for last.
Tell us.
Well, actually, no, the best was the Knights Templar. Who am I kidding? So there are other people that believe that the money pit and surrounding structures are evidence of what may be America's or North America's first shipyard, and that the cove was actually a pumping station for a dry dock. The shafts and tunnel discovered resemble dry dock setups used in the West Indies and other areas surrounding Oak Island was frequented by pirates and privateers. So that does hold a lot of weight.
So it goes back to the idea that this is just related to industry, the industry being this is just a dry dock.
Exactly. And weirdos, I'm going to be honest with you. If I had to like put my foot down and say, this is the one I truly believe in, it would probably be the dry docking theory.
You'd bet your money on this one?
Yeah.
It would explain the stuff
that we've already gone over.
Yeah, it would explain like the coconut, the grass, even the gold links, like that could come from ships.
Exactly. And all those pieces of wood that are separated exactly at like 10 feet, right? Or like the planks.
Yeah.
So
that would be a good, yeah.
Like that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, but people have died.
People have died. And since, oh man, it is crazy. Like I think since 1795, right, when it was first discovered, there have been like at least like a dozen and a half, probably like close to 24 groups that have searched for this, like in earnest. And that's at least. Could be more, honestly. I'm not really sure.
The ones that we know of.
Yeah, exactly. Not really sure. It's wild. So it is clear that there have been many people and groups interested in uncovering the mystery of Oak Island. You know, I already mentioned Franklin Roosevelt, who is probably the most like famous person.
A president.
A United States president. And not only like just any old United States president, the guy who led us during World War II.
He was looking for this treasure.
He was looking for this treasure.
Wow. What a weird world.
Exactly. And then in 1970, speaking of like other famous people, John Wayne leased equipment with the Triton Alliance to explore the money pit.
Wow.
Their efforts were unsuccessful.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I feel like if John Wayne found a bunch of gold, I would have heard about that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that would have been like really big news. Unfortunately, though, it's not the case.
Not the case.
Not the case. So has anyone found anything noteworthy, though?
That's a really good question.
So
you tell me.
Over the last 250 years, there have been many artifacts and things found in the money pit. So here's like a list of just a few things that have been found. Okay. So there's a boatswain's whistle, a lot of brass, like china, coconut fibers, like we mentioned before, and we've also found old coins dating back to the 16th century.
Wow. Those are old.
Yeah. There have been drilled rocks, the gold links, the stone tablet that I had mentioned, and a small scrap of parchment at the 153-foot level that I had mentioned as well. And an old pair of wrought iron scissors was also discovered from the area that was believed to be the flood tunnel system at Smith's Cove. So the discovery, that discovery was made in 1967 and identified as Spanish-American design prior to the mid-1800s. So we are seeing like a lot of things from very different like eras of human history.
And all of those things could be found on a ship.
Exactly. So one of the most notable discoveries that have been found is Nolan's Cross. And it's a large cross shape formed by 6 large boulders that are found on the island. And it's crazy. So, and it's named after the guy who found it, Fred Nolan, or at least put it together.
Okay.
So the overall dimensions of the cross is 360 feet wide by 867 feet tall.
Oh my God.
So much has been speculated as to their purpose, from simple like boundary demarcation or demarcation lines to rather like complex geometry and even Templar connections.
Yeah, that's what I would think of. Like that would go for the Knights Templar theory of like, look at this giant cross.
Exactly. And there was also a mysterious stone triangle that was discovered by Captain Welling while exploring the south shore of Oak Island in 1897. So in the grass just above the high water mark, a triangle of beach stones formed an equilateral triangle pointing to true north.
Okay.
Yes, if extended, this line ran directly through the money pit some 210 feet away. A curved line of rocks at the base of this made the mysterious triangle kind of resemble a large sextant, which is like a tool for traversing the oceans and like the, age of exploration.
That also sounds like it would make sense, though, if this was a dry dock.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So the true purpose of the stone triangle is fully not understood.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're getting kind of to the present.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about the Langina brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very unfortunate last name.
Yes, they do.
And their names are Marty and Rick.
Marty and Rick
here. So they were so intrigued by the mystery of Oak Island that they actually created a TV show on the History Channel about excavating Oak Island.
That's their whole show?
That's their show. And it's gone on for like...
Oh, that's the show you mentioned.
That's
at
the
the
show
beginning.
I mentioned, yeah. And that's how I got the idea for this episode.
Oh,
and
wow.
So it all started for them in January of 1965 after reading an article in Reader's Digest describing the Restall family's work to investigate the so-called money pit.
So they saw this as kids.
They saw this as kids and it became like a lifelong dream for them.
Wow.
So a few decades later, the Langina brothers decided to buy a controlling interest in the company Oak Island Tours, which owned most of the island. And that's a company that still exists to this day.
Yeah.
They were approached by a production company and boom, they got a TV show which skyrocketed the popularity and really the obsession of Oak Island overall.
Of course. Now more and more people know about it than ever.
Exactly. So the first season aired on January 5th, 2014. So still relatively recent, like a little over 10 years ago now.
That's when you graduated college.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Good year. Or bad year. Well, it's actually the year that we got together. So great year.
Oh, thanks, babe. That's right.
Yeah.
That's how long we've been together, weirdos.
10 years.
10 years.
Wow. That's wild.
It's gone by quickly.
It has. So, so that's what they first had their first season in January 2014, and they just wrapped up the latest season on April 30th of this year.
That's crazy.
And spoiler alert, they have not found a massive treasure.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't want to, save you guys 12 seasons worth of stuff. They have found some pretty cool things, but a lot of criticism about the show is that a lot of it is kind of like pseudoscience-y.
Oh.
And I can get into that a little bit, but it's just sad.
And of course they're going to find things, though. Finding things doesn't mean that there's treasure.
Exactly.
If there have been all these people, at the very least, going to the island to look for treasure over the last couple hundred years, like, yes, you're going to find stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
They would be leaving things behind.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So here, I'm just going to give you like a list of a few of the things that they have found, and it is kind of impressive. So they did find a 17th century Spanish copper coin. They found purportedly a Roman sword that looked like it was from the late 2nd century, but more than likely it's a modern replica.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that would be crazy.
That would be like insane. So they also found a lead cross with a square hole at the top from this dated between the 13th and 17th centuries.
Yeah.
They found a rhodolite garnet brooch that is like either between 400 to 500 years old.
Wow.
They found ring bolts, ox shoes, and finally they found a carved stone slab similar to some on the surface that was dug up in 1804. Notably, though, like I said, no major treasure. So what's the deal with this place?
What's the deal with this place, babe?
So at this point, a lot of people are starting to write off that it just might all be one big hoax.
Yeah.
Right? After all, why go through these elaborate designs? And so going into the episode, I really believe that there was some like incredible treasure buried here because of all these things that are protecting what's buried beneath.
Just a bunch of booby traps, it seems like.
Yeah, but after the research, like I said, the theory that holds the most weight for me was that it was used as a dry dock for centuries.
And isn't there a saying that...
Or centuries ago, I'm sorry.
Isn't there a saying that the most obvious answer tends to be...
The correct one?
Yeah.
Is that Occam's razor?
Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And that may be the case here I don't think it was intentional for it to get this big, but I do think humans are very motivated by the idea of wealth.
Exactly. And you know what? It's funny that you say that because I feel like the real treasure here is getting that TV show, the Langina Brothers.
For the Langina Brothers. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
the
making
real
the
treasure.
money.
Yeah, that's the money maker right there.
Yeah, so their passion did lead to a treasure after all.
Exactly. They got, they got their TV show. They got, and they also formed the tour company because of the TV show. Like interest in the island has skyrocketed, so they make money off of that. So they made, quite a bit of money just drilling down and seeing if they.
Yeah. So at this point for them, it may not matter if there was an actual treasure.
Exactly.
And they are ultimately finding historical artifacts.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, and kind of going back to like why I think it's the dry dock.
Yeah.
What makes sense is that I think just stuff got left behind over the course of centuries, right? Literally centuries.
Yeah.
Like think about it. So like, it was used as the dry dock. Stuff got, lost overboard or whatever is just left there. We find it later, but then as other people like come in and start digging, they lose stuff, and
they leave stuff behind. Yeah,
they leave stuff behind, which then future people like find, and it just becomes like the perpetuating cycle.
Yeah, that every time someone finds something, they think, "Oh, let me keep looking." They're leaving stuff behind. The next person's going to think the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's what we think. But more importantly, weirdos, what do you think?
We really want to know because this is just, for me at least, it sounds like the most logical.
Right.
But we obviously could be wrong.
We could be very wrong, right?
And maybe if you
I hope we are, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, for the sake of everyone that invested time, energy,
and their lives
into this, it would suck if it's like, you guys, that was just a dry dock that fell out of use.
Oh my God.
There's nothing there.
That would be so sad. It would be actually quite like a big archaeological find because it would be the first dry dock in North America. So kind of cool.
There you go.
But not the treasure that most people are looking for.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is the mystery of Oak Island.
Wow. I told you the first time we recorded this, before you doing this episode, I had never heard of Oak Island.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because it sounds like a lot of people over time have heard about this.
I know.
So I'm really glad to have learned about this mystery. It would be cool to go and see, even if I think it's a dry dock.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's in Nova Scotia, so we can see the Trailer Park Boys too.
Very important.
Very important indeed.
A little pilgrimage.
I know. Weirdos, if you guys watch Trailer Park Boys,
let us know.
You're a real one.
And let us know either in the comments on this episode on Spotify or over on Instagram at History For Weirdos, honestly, like what your theory is as to what's going on here at Oak Island. We'd love to hear your insights.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of at a loss. I guess I'm not at a loss. I do think it's a dry dock, but my mind has been changed before in the past.
That's
based off of new information. So if you do have something that you'd like to add, definitely would love to hear it. Or if you just want to say, yeah, I think you're right, Andrew. That helps my ego.
We love to hear that too.
Yeah,
actually,
exactly.
just comment that one. And weirdos, a little update is we have our wonderful research assistant, Felicia, helping us. So she gets a lot of great sources. So we're going to start putting the sources for each of the episodes just in the show notes.
Exactly.
So we don't list them all, and you can find them more easily that way too.
Precisely. Yeah. Well, that's all I have for you guys this week.
Thank you so much for regaling us with this tale. And thank you, weirdos, as always, for joining us.
Until next time.
Adios.